Hey, this is Fireman Rob. You know, optimal performance isn't something that happens just by accident. I know this for a fact from being a fireman and doing way too many Ironman triathlons in full firefighter gear. But everybody always asks me, what's your secret? I can give you one secret. That's the right stuff hydration. Hydration is important when it comes to being present in the moment, ready to run into the fires and being capable of showing up every single time at your best. The right stuff was created for NASA, by NASA, for their astronauts. Now it's trusted by professional athletes in Major League Baseball, NBA, NFL, and most of the top-tier college sports. It's not an accident to prepare yourself to be great. If you're looking for that next edge, go to therightstuff-usa.com and enter the code FiremanRob and you will get 10% off at your checkout. This is an opportunity I wouldn't pass up. I have and still do use the right stuff. It's serious hydration for serious athletes, from the weekend warriors to those on the front lines. Make this a part of your habits to be the best you daily.
Welcome to Forged in the Fires podcast with Fireman Rob. Being a fireman, father, veteran, husband, world record holder, and Ironman, he brings stories of experience to impact your life while challenging you to live it. What do you want from your life? Why do you want it? Are you willing to go through the challenges to get there? If you have the courage to take that first step, let this podcast be the catalyst to start your fire while you bring the resilience to make it continue to burn. Our lives are made up of moments called right nows. So let's get started. Forged in the Fires podcast with your host, Fireman Rob, begins now.
We got the same blood, the same blood. Stay by your side, it's ride or die. We've got the same.
All right, welcome back to Forged in the Fires podcast. I'm your host, Fireman Rob. Today's guest I know really well, a good friend of mine. You know, she's a fulfillment coach. We'll find out what that is. She's a nomadic entrepreneur, which we'll also find out what it is. But more than that, she is an amazing person who has created a brand. It's called Rebrand You. And she helps individuals to really form their lives from their stories and form their lives from who they are and not conform to everything else that is out there. My guest today, Amy Nubson. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me, Rob.
Oh, it's so good to have you on. Usually we're talking in different forms. We have a great brand that we're bringing out to people, right?
Looking forward to it. It's going to be so good.
I know. It's exciting. It's exciting. We're going to be bringing out this great thing. Your Voice Mastermind. It's a coaching for people who want to learn to be able to speak. Tell us more, Amy.
Yeah. So as we go through our lives, I think we start to forget what our real story is. And we love telling stories, but as a kid, we have that skill. But as adults, we kind of speed through the process.
Right.
Or we want to get to the point really quickly and we forget about letting people enjoy it. So the whole point of the workshop is to help people find a way to express their stories and make it interesting and always have a point with it as well.
I love it. I love it. And this, you know, it's funny because you weren't always able to be that speaker, be that voice.
Oh my gosh, no.
It was not always like that. And, you know, I want to go back and just kind of go back, you know, your roots you were a farm girl, right?
I was. I grew up in a small town in Wisconsin on a dairy farm.
A dairy farm, you know, and you know, the cows they're not really responsive to speaking, are they?
No, they really don't. No. Neither do the cats or the dogs. No, they don't.
It's just not a great environment for that. But I mean, you learn to work hard there, yeah. and that translated to your life. But tell me more about how, you know, that hard work actually kind of became a detriment to you because you thought that was the only thing that you had.
Yeah, there's a great story that illustrates this so well, kind of where things kind of started. And I started realizing that others were more important than me. But the story goes, okay, when I was little, at 8 years old, I had to start working on the farm. And my dad would ask me like for a hammer. And I'm like, yeah, I can do that. I can get a hammer. I know what that is, right? So I'd run into the shed and I'm like, yeah, got it. Run back. And he's like, I want a hammer. I want a wrench. I'm like, what? He said a hammer. I know he said a hammer. But what I didn't realize at the time, my dad was from Norway and his English always kind of sometimes got messed up in his head. So he didn't always ask for what he actually wanted.
Huh.
Yeah. So the next time he wanted a hammer, I'm like, I got this. I got the solution to this. I ran into the shed and I'm like, grabbed every single tool I could possibly grab. And I'm like, one of these have got to be it. And I carried it out to him. I'm like, here you go. Which one do you want? And I'm like, crap, now I have to put them all back. And at 8 years old, you're like, where did these go?
I can only imagine the visual of that at 8 years old, carrying almost the whole toolbox out.
You're trying desperately, like, is this right?
Then him saying, I didn't even need a tool.
Right, exactly. It's like, or sometimes you'd be like, I'm already done. I'm like, oh.
Great. Well, you can have all these.
Exactly.
I love that story for that fact that, it's one of those things where you're trying to satisfy somebody else's need for something while at the same time, just, at 8 years old, carrying all those tools, that's a burden on you.
Right. And I learned to just start to anticipate what he needed, not really what he said, what he needed, and as farm work too, you have to try to figure out what's going to happen so you can anticipate and do it and be prepared.
Right.
And I started doing that all the way through my life and started anticipating what others needed instead of myself. And so their stories were more important. Their needs were more important. And I carried it all the way into my adulthood.
And you've been a marketing professional for a long time.
Yes, for over almost 20 years now. And that was the greatest field I could gone into, knowing my background of preparing people for what tools they need to be. That's exactly what you do in marketing.
Right.
So I made a career out of that choice and that experience.
That's interesting, though. It's one of those fascinating moments where you go, uh-oh.
And you're like, no wonder why I got lost. Like that was a path I took and just, I owned it. I was proud of it, and it wasn't until I realized I could do that and be me and have my voice. So why not do both?
Exactly. And finding your voice, creating this Rebrand You, and also in essence, it's like a culture for individuals to find that voice. But at the same time, you have 3 C's that you talk about. What are those?
I do. It is clarity, courage, and confidence.
Ooh.
Yes.
I like those.
And it took me a while to figure these out because you have to have clarity of self. And I didn't have that. Even in my 30s, I was struggling with that. Like, who am I? What do I want? And then I realized once I got the clarity, I needed the courage to take steps forward and start living my life the way I wanted to.
Right.
And that led me to confidence. And the more confidence I had, the easier it became to be me. And in every situation I got into or found myself or wanting to do.
And you found in that confidence, it was interesting with talking with you, that confidence really, you started to get other people coming to you to be able to do coaching, to be able to do different marketing strategies. It was almost like that confidence exude to other people and they could feel it.
Yeah, it's really interesting when you feel secure in yourself, others feel secure in themselves. Like when they're in a conversation with them and they're open to a different conversation, be more vulnerable with you if you are too. I'm always happy to share my mistakes, my errors, because it's part of my life. It's part of my story. And if I can share something that helps somebody else see something in them and go, you know what? I did that too. Right. And I'm like, it's fine. Don't be ashamed of it. I've made plenty of mistakes, It's like, oh my gosh, and some are quite hilarious. Some are quite scary, and, should have shut me down, but I wouldn't let, it's okay. to make those mistakes.
So the biggest part of that, being able to tell those mistakes to people, is being vulnerable. How did you come about to be able to be vulnerable? What did that take for you? Because most people, that's their hurdle.
I started seeing when I was doing my marketing coaching or marketing clients, and starting to see that there was something behind the surface that they weren't telling me.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, I would start saying something about myself, like, kind of helping them, guide them down the conversation. And eventually they would open up. One client I found in my office crying, saying she had $5,000 left to her name. And she was hoping that this marketing campaign would make the difference. And I was like, do not give me your money. Do not give anybody your money. Keep it. And here's what you can do for free. Don't hire anybody.
Right.
And the idea of being vulnerable helped that conversation go along. That was the first experience I had with how that worked. And that's when I realized I didn't want to be in marketing. I wanted to be there to help people, not sell products. And so that's why I went into more business coaching, because I wanted to be able to help someone like that who really needed more business help, more structure, and getting ready for marketing.
Right. And that takes us perfectly into that fulfillment strategic coach. Tell me more about what that means.
Well, when you're fulfilled in life, you're able to make better decisions and be confident in it. So it's in life and in business. So being fulfilled to follow your dream. And it's really going back to those 3 C's of clarity, courage, and confidence. And maybe you have a lot of courage, but you don't have a lot of clarity. So we work on that. Right. What do you want in your life? Maybe you're very successful, but it's not what you truly enjoy doing.
Right.
Or you have the clarity, but you don't have the confidence. So we got to work on the courage part. That's the fun thing of figuring out where you are in those 3 C's.
Right. And now I want to dive into the 3 C's, because I think it's so valuable for people to actually understand that aspect, because clarity, I mean, it's not something that you just wake up with one day. Tell me, don't give away the farm. Sorry about the pun. But what are some of the little things that people can start to find that clarity?
Well, a lot of it is asking yourself questions. Mm-hmm. Do I enjoy what I'm doing today? Do I like working with these clients? What would make my day better? The questions are so important to ask yourself, and not to be answering them in a way that you feel you should.
Right.
It's more about honestly answering them and sitting with the question and really thinking about it and taking the time with it. That was the first thing I had to do for my own clarity. And when I found that in my situation, I had to sit there and go, how did I get here?
Right.
And what do I want?
Right. Now, those questions, do they change as you grow? Do they change as your life changes? Or are they similar questions that you ask yourself to see the differences?
I think there's some questions that continuously go throughout your life, because you're kind of checking in with yourself.
Right.
Am I still in the right place where I would love being? Did I get off, where, because sometimes small things can get you off where you really want to be. But then there's some that are very specific in that moment where I ask myself, like, how did I get here?
Right.
That was a very specific question, and trying to figure out, how did I end up even in marketing? And it took me a long time to figure out that story and why marketing was such an easy fit for me.
I love that. Now, that clarity really leans into that confidence, and the courage. Yes. And it's interesting being a firefighter that everybody, oh, you're so courageous, but it's an interesting term. Yeah. Because courage can be taken in many different frameworks and on many different levels. What does the courage mean in your 3 C's?
to me, the courage to be yourself.
Yeah.
You know, I grew up as on the farm, like I was just a farm kid. And, you know, it didn't take any courage to be on a farm, but I was I wasn't one of the lucky ones. I was injured on the farm too. Like every farm kid I know was injured, you know?
Right.
So it took courage to keep going. It took courage to be me, but it also took courage for me to stand up to my parents and say, I don't want to be a farmer. I want to move away from this world. I want to go past what I already know.
Right.
And because I knew it wasn't part of who I was.
Right. How do people reframe that? Because that's probably one of the harder things, is that as society, we have certain terms that you see and you go, courage is this. If you don't reach this pedestal, you don't do it. How do people frame that back into their lives of, you know, just like you were saying, the courage to just speak out in one moment?
Yeah, because to me, courage is not that heroic moment. I mean, we all have those in our lives as well, but those are like few and far between, unless, of course, they're in industries like yours, Rob. But you have to put yourself in those situations in order for those to happen.
Right.
But the courage every day sometimes can be, for my husband, it's courage every day to wake up in pain and say, I will not let this pain affect me. That is courage. It's the courage to wake up and say, I am going to follow my dream. I am going to live the life I want. Right. It doesn't have to be overly complicated. It's just the idea of standing up for yourself.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. That's so cool. Standing up for yourself against yourself.
Yeah, and that's really the worst person that knocks you down faster than anybody is yourself.
Right.
And so it's the courage not to listen to your negative self-talk.
So how did you, and this is kind of, you know, going into the deep, but how did you create a brand? This is an awesome story, because how did you create a brand about rebranding yourself and coming from where you did and the mindset that you did? How did you continue to push forward? Because I think that's a lot of people going, oh my God. So she started out with this mindset and now has a brand, and, you know, they can hear your voice. They can hear the confidence. They can hear the courage. They can hear the clarity of what you're talking about. How did that transition how did you maintain that transition? I think that's the biggest thing.
How do you maintain it?
Yeah. How do you go from that? Like, because there's going to be those dark moments, those doubts, those fears. How do you continue to go through that? Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I think it's really about having the support and the structure, right? So you have like a good foundation of knowing who you are. Right. And for me, it was a power statement. And I am important and my voice matters. That is what wakes me up when I'm in self-doubt. Because prior to that, I believed that my voice didn't matter. That's why I hid behind marketing. Their voices mattered. Mine did not.
Wow.
And it didn't motivate me after a while. But when I found that I mattered and what my voice was needed, I was like, okay, what can I do today that gives me one small piece of courage to get out of this funk? What's one little step to move forward in that thought? And then it becomes easier and easier because it's not just about me anymore. And it's more about my passion and what my purpose is.
I love that. Make sure you go to rebrandyoucoaching.com. It's very critical that you go there if you're looking for that purpose, looking for that fulfillment in your life, and you're missing a few keys along there. Amy, the other part that I want to ask you about, so when you for marketing, and I think this is kind of we're going on a different route here. On marketing, there's so many people that struggle for personal brands, right?
Yes.
There's so many people that it's so hard to market yourself. now you are in that realm of marketing yourself. And, we have all these negative thoughts and talk about ourselves in our own head. How do you get out of that to be able to market yourself to people?
Oh, marketing yourself can be extremely scary. And you just kind of start doubting yourself at some point. But again, I just have to think about, what am I up to? How am I trying to make a difference? And do I truly believe in what I'm doing? And if my answer is yes, then I move forward. As long as I stay true to who I am, I will keep going. But it is extremely difficult to brand yourself, to market yourself. And I recognized that early on in my career, how others were panicking, and they hadn't done the process of getting that clarity of who they are as a business or as themselves. And what is the difference between your business and you?
Yeah.
Because that's really important to find out too in marketing.
Right.
Because when you're completely involved in your brand, you got to be ready for all the roller coasters, because it's not just you now, it's the brand itself, and it's all the working pieces.
Right.
But if your brand can separate a little bit from you, then you can be a little more of an observer and not let it affect you so much. And I have to say, being in an art college, I got really good with criticism really early on in my career. And I realized it's not about me, it's their opinions. And I could take it on, or I could let it go.
Oh, that's huge. Yeah.
And it's the same thing with marketing. We can let the negative opinions affect us, or we can let it go, because it is somebody's opinion. And you said something that triggered them or gave them an image that responded to them, but that's on them.
Right. I love that, because I think so many people today, and it's not even if you have a speaking brand like I do, or, a business, a personal business, it's everybody that goes into a job. Mm-hmm. They are a personal brand. And you have to think that if you can't go into a job, like if you have a bachelor's, it's a lot of people do. Mm-hmm. How do you differentiate yourself? And I think that's, I see Rebrand You and I'm like, oh my God, that makes total sense for even somebody going into a job to be able to have something different, right?
Right. And I always, when you hear the stories like, oh, I act differently at work than I do at home. And I'm like, how do you do that? That must take so much energy. That sounds like 3 jobs, why would you do that?
Right.
Because it just doesn't make sense to me. And I never have. I might have been holding back, but I always was who I was. Where people actually, sometimes I've heard stories where they're like, oh, I create this persona. And I'm like,
is it like Batman?
Yeah. I'm like, but isn't that exhausting? They're like, yeah, it wears down on you. And so the best is figuring out who you are and just showing up as you.
That's huge. I think it's huge for anybody listening that is, going into the job field or wants to create a new job. It's so important that, you find yourself and, go to rebrandyoucoaching.com and make sure that you find that, because I think it's critical nowadays, because there's so many jobs open, but you want to get the one that you want, right?
Right. You want to find the one that fits you too. So if you're trying to be somebody else and you get into the job and you're like, oh my gosh, this isn't what I wanted. Well, it's because you weren't being truthful in the interview. I remember my very first job out of college, and I was like needing a break so bad, because I had never taken a break in college. I was like, oh, good. I'm done. I can take some break.
Nope.
I got a job a week out of college. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. Like, I'm glad. but I went into that interview, like, not really caring, right? I wasn't like all excited. I was just like being myself. And they're like, what's more important to you? And I was being honest with my answers. And I got a call back immediately and I was hired. And I was like, what? I didn't answer the way I thought they would want. I answered the way I truly believed. That was eye-opening for me too, to realize they actually seen me and they wanted me, and the skills can come along later.
That's interesting. That's crazy. I mean, yeah, that is a different way of thinking. And most people are like, well, what do they want to know? And instead it was, hey, this is who I am. Take it or leave it.
Yep, exactly. And when I did marketing pitches, I never pitched myself. Never. I never had a beautiful presentation about my marketing company and all what I can do. And I never did any of that. I'm like, this meeting
nice
isn't
way to
about
leave that
me.
on the table.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't about me. It was about them and how I can help them. And what I wanted to know about their company, not what my company has done. It's a different way of approaching, and some people liked it and some people didn't. And I was looking for my match. And that's where I think the courage and confidence is trying to find where you fit. And it might be a little different than you expect, but that's where that confidence is. Keep looking.
Right.
Find what you enjoy and find what fits you, and you fit them.
I love it. I love it. Amy Nubson, it's been a pleasure talking with you today. I always end the same way. So we're going to start with question number 1. Are you ready?
Sure.
All right. So if you could go back to your 18-year-old self and tell yourself one thing to do different, what would it be?
Oh, it'd be stop thinking so much in your head and pay attention. Listen. Just listen.
Oh, don't we all wish we could do that?
Oh my gosh, that would make my life so much better.
Now, do you do that today?
I do.
Oh, okay.
Sometimes I'm like, my ADD is like, I'm like, just calm down. All right. No, really pay attention. Yes.
That's a hard one. I like that. All right, here's question 2. If you could, everybody's going through challenges and struggles. If you could tell people 2 habits, they can do it during the day, they can do it in the morning, evening. If they could do 2 habits differently every single day, what would they be?
Write your tasks down. Get it out of your head. Would be one thing. And 2, plan play and enjoyment in your day.
I like that.
Yeah,
those are good ones. It's like almost so you were ready. I hope you didn't cheat.
I didn't. That is actually what I do every day. So.
There you go. All right, here's the last one. So, if you could have coffee with 3 individuals, they could be deceased or alive, at a firehouse table. So in other words, no questions are off the table. The conversation is going to be lively. Who would those 3 people be and why?
Oh my goodness.
Exactly.
Probably my great grandfather. He was an albino Norwegian in World War II, and he planned and figured out all of the recession.
Wow.
He smuggled radios. He just sounded like a fascinating man who did business. Was really ahead of his game and time at that time. I think he would be an interesting man to talk to.
Oh, wow.
Who else?
This is always a challenge.
Yeah. I think Brene Brown would be fantastic to talk to because she's so real. And again, that vulnerability,
right?
Just having a conversation with someone who will tell you the real story.
Love it.
I don't know.
Who's the last one who's going to pour the coffee?
I don't know. That's a really good question. I'm not really wanting to think about that much. I guess I would have you there, Rob. It'd just be more fun.
You're saying I got to pour the coffee too? Oh,
exactly. Make you work a little bit.
I'll be the moderator. I love it. I'll be there with bells on.
Sounds great.
Awesome. Well, Amy, it's been a pleasure. Make sure you go to rebrandyoucoaching.com today. Whether you're going for a job, you're starting a business, you're already in business, it makes sense for you to find out who you are. Amy, thanks again.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
And we'll talk to you guys next time.
Thanks for listening and supporting the Forged in the Fires podcast with Fireman Rob. Remember, don't forget to like and subscribe to this podcast, and please share this episode with a friend or family. To find out more about Fireman Rob or reach out about a question, go to www.firemanrob.com. Until next time, live your life forged in the fires.